Say hello to the stars of 60 Minutes right here. How do they do this? They're good every Sunday night. I've never seen a boring 60 Minutes program. I'll tell you how they do it. They do it with hard work and thoughtful, creative sessions that go on behind the scenes, like this one between Godfather Hewitt and Mike Wallace. Here are pros at work. It's fascinating to watch this. I learn when I watch this.
And when a producer and correspondent have assembled a story, they know they need a final okay from Don Hewitt. Here he's screening a Mike Wallace report on Serbia.
I sit there and I say to myself, if I were a viewer sitting home Sunday night at 7, would I be interested in this? Would I be confused? When we go away to all that fighting, I'm lost. This is the story that I see every night in the news. I
know that, Don, but those are the facts. You've got to establish the context in which we are telling the rest of the story. Why is Shechel important? Because he hates Croats and Croats hate him.
You know that.
I know what it is. Hold it a minute, goddammit.
Goddammit, Mike, just please.
Would you listen to me?
He's still going. He's still going.
Ask him who won the argument.
Forget it.
Hewitt won the argument.
He did?
He did, and I'll tell you why. Because no matter whose idea it is, he adopts it within an hour and a half.
It is intense, and it's kind of messy backstage, I assume, at 60 Minutes, America's most watched television program. Nevertheless, you were welcomed, I'm sure, with all the tact becoming the gentleman that these folks are. Or has it been a different? From the White House to 60 Minutes, back to the White House? Tell us.
Well, you know, the White House is cutthroat competition. You know that. With Sam Donaldson and the other correspondents, so
60 Minutes
I had no problem.
You fit right in.
I was at home the
She went
first
from the
day.
White House to the outhouse.
Let me, and you both have passports that belong on the cover of National Geographic. You have all been all over the world. And who comes now? What must it be like after a little over 20 years on the air? In walks Steve Croft, who at 40-something, I won't say you're the youngest. I better be careful here.
It's all right, Phil.
Well, who will forget this interview last year, just before Election Day? Here's Steve Croft and two people very familiar to us. 60 Minutes.
Jennifer Flowers, in a tabloid interview for which she was paid, says she carried on a long-term affair with Governor Clinton from the late 1970s through the end of 1989. Who is Jennifer Flowers? You know her.
Oh, yes.
How do you know? How would you describe your relationship?
Very limited, but until this, you know, friendly, but limited. I met her in the late 70s when I was Attorney General. And she was one of a number of young people who were working for the television stations around Little Rock. And, the people in politics and the people in the media knew each other then, just as they do now.
She's a legend and is described in some detail in a supermarket tabloid, which she calls a 12-year affair with you.
That allegation is false.
Tabloid. I mean, come on. Tabloid.
Sleaze.
Baloney. Cheap yellow journalism.
That's right.
It's not an issue.
Nah.
What do you think you are, Croft? Come in here, wise guy.
Geraldo.
Putting that president-elect or the Governor Clinton president to be on the spot like that? How much heat did you take?
I don't think I took really any heat. I think it was an interview that everybody wanted, and we were fortunate enough to get it. You know, I think a few people sniped a little bit about the fact that anybody was doing a story that, that picked up on a supermarket tabloid, but there were 300 reporters waiting outside the hotel in Boston where we did the interview, so there were a lot of people that wanted to ask the questions.
Yeah.
And wanted answers.
Yes. Didn't sink to a new low, didn't feel a little self-conscious going into the private life of a man.
Awful. Sorry we did it. Awful.
Well, to those who make this charge, you say what? Incidentally, are you trying to get Mrs. Bobbitt for, or Mr. Bobbitt?
No.
You're saying no?
Nor Amy Fisher, no.
You're kidding me.
No.
You joined the nunnery, for God's sake.
Nor, what's her name, the Hollywood madam? Heidi
Fleiss, you're telling me that if Heidi Fleiss, Amy Fisher, and Mrs. Bobbitt asked you to be on 60 Minutes, you would say no? Liar, liar, pants on fire. Yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous. I know what's wrong. I know what you're getting. Too many awards.
That's right.
Would you like to spend a few hours with Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, it isn't necessarily woman's work, and we all pray for the day when there'll be no such thing. But Leslie Stahl has earned her stripes as well. Now, here she is. This is grim. She wears a wig and sunglasses. She goes to Romania to do an undercover piece on selling babies, and she's there. They don't recognize her. She's a brunette, and the guy is negotiating the price for the children in front of the children. 60 Minutes, Leslie Stahl.
How do you buy a baby? Well, you find a middleman who'll take you to a family with children for sale. They're not hard to find. Romanian babies are now the hottest item on the Romanian black market. If you're a reporter and you don't want to be recognized by the hundreds of Americans in Romania trying to adopt a baby, you do what I did. You wear a black wig, you get your cameraman to pose as your husband, and you record the whole unbelievable scene with a home video camera.
3 months, 4 months.
The man with me is Marcel, a baby broker who took us to meet a mother who wants to sell her children. One is 8, the other is 6.
The children hasn't got the same father.
Oh. To our astonishment, the haggling began almost immediately right there in front of the 2 little girls. Marcel was outraged at the mother's asking price of $2,000.
I am crazy, but I'm not that crazy to pay that amount of money. In dollars, it's $2,000. No, $2,500 for both.
For both. Unde a venit? Că a fost plecat? What about for one?
Și cât pentru aia mică cât vrei?
Aia mică, 125 de mii. Aia mică.
$1,000.
1,000 for one.
Wow. Proud of that. Undercover, deception, fool people, you lie, and you justify it. I saw him quoted, yes, I lie. And you say, yes, you lie, for the greater good of getting the story. Do I understand your position on this?
No. For the greater good of getting an audience.
Well, it's what? It's very good at getting an audience?
You should know that.
But you do justify deception like this. You don't see it as a moral problem.
What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that?
It's the real color of her hair, for God's sake.
All right, those of you who can answer this, I'm sorry, did you want to pick up Leslie?
I tell you, when I came home, Don said to me, well, who's going to recognize you in Romania anyway?
Well, there were Americans there. You made that point, so it's not about flattering yourself. If you can answer this question, you'll get a black and white autographed picture of me suitable for framing. What do George Michaels, the musician, Bruce Willis, Wesley Snipes, Malcolm Jabal Warner, Michael Jordan of the Bulls, late of the Bulls, Prince, Spike Lee, Patrick Swayze, Mickey Rourke, and Ed Bradley have in common?
Not much.
Not much.
They all wear an earring in their ear, but he didn't wear it today. What have we done wrong here? Ed, this momentous event was recorded by United Press International. I have it right here in 1987. A CBS spokesman says the network did not try to dissuade Bradley from wearing the earring on the air and left the decision totally up to him. Hence, Bradley wore it for Thursday's taping session. It was a small gold ring, CBS spokesman Roy Brunette said. You probably won't even notice it. And in 1987, CBS was probably hoping the public wouldn't.
I still wear it.
I know.
I don't wear it every day.
Right.
I wear it when I feel like wearing it. And the only person who tried to talk me out of it was Mike, who every other day would look around and say, "You're not still wearing that thing, are you?" Don, he's got it in today. But I only wear the gold hoop. That's my working earring. The diamond I wear elsewhere.
When he doesn't lend it to Leslie.
Before we make our first break, it is worthy of comment here that one of the personalities at the center of a gigantic sea change shift in America's attitude toward the Vietnam War was none other than Morley Safer. It was Morley Safer who reported that our own troops were using cigarette lighters to inflame thatched huts in which real live Vietnamese people happened to be residing. And the phone rang in Frank Stanton's bedroom at 2 o'clock in the morning, and no less a personage than Lyndon Johnson said, now he didn't even say hello. He said, "Are you trying to F me?" Lyndon had his way of speaking. And it was a direct challenge to Ed Bradley's boss. You were unpatriotic. CBS was unpatriotic. You never should have done that. Our boys were fighting, and here you are reporting. You took as big a heat as you've ever taken in your career, I would guess. You'll tell the people.
I did take a lot of heat, but mercifully, I didn't know I was taking a lot of heat, because the very same Frank Stanton and then president of CBS News, Fred Friendly, I was 13,000 miles away, and communications, thank goodness, were not that great then. So I didn't have much of an idea. It was perhaps months later. And those two men took an awful lot of heat. The only thing Stanton ever asked for was a full account of everything that led up to that afternoon and everything that immediately followed. And as you know, he was is a very courageous man. The father of the best of our kind of broadcasting,
right.
And a man who was prepared to go to jail to maintain a stand.
Yeah. If I said, does that kind of courage obtained today in the management reaches...
No.
I'm getting out of here.
I was just going to predict that you would say yes.
I'll tell you why. Or I should say we don't know. I don't think the present management of the network you appear on,
be careful,
or ABC, would allow anything to get to the point where they might have to go to jail. I think somehow they would compromise in the course of.
So you think a restraining influence is more palpable today than it was in the late 60s?
In one sense, there is more of a restraining influence, and in another way, it's also anything goes. I think things happen in news broadcasts today that wouldn't have happened.
Except that, let's face it, we're talking Vietnam for a moment. Vietnam had this country in chaos. And when you did what you did, which was a watershed thing to do, it suddenly, so who called it the living room war? Suddenly, in living rooms across America, here was Morley Safer saying, we got to burn down this place in order to save it. American troops were torching.
A commanding officer was saying that to Morley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a result of what, I don't agree. I think that there are brave men, honest men, reliable men, at the top of the news divisions and at the top of the networks, given the same kind of a crisis going on in America, who damn well would stand up and be counted.
I suppose really what I'm saying as well is that perhaps that courage isn't so necessary. There is such an overriding contempt these days at every level, pretty much, for politics, for politicians, and even for presidents. And 25, 30 years ago, there was this... there was a greater sense of decorum about how you dealt with government than there is now.
Yeah.
Perhaps starting with your piece and then proceeding through Watergate, the way we cover public officials, the way we cover wars is so different that if you wanted to do that piece today, the president would barely call up.
Right.
It's almost standard for
Well,
journalists
I couldn't do that piece today because the president and his minions wouldn't have let us near the
That's
war.
the point I was about to make.
let's
You'd be
move
in
to
a
that.
bus terminal somewhere watching the war on CNN. And
That's
with...
why Bob Simon of CBS, of course, wound up in an
Yes, he
Iraqi
did.
jail for a long time. But by the same token, Peter Arnett was over there.
He was?
Working with Saddam Hussein. There was working against Saddam Hussein. And there was all kinds
You
of...
commend him for his courage. I don't want you misunderstood here, Michael. You commend what Peter
hell
did.
Yes. He was over there. It was very unpopular.
Yes.
And he was backed up by the people at CNN.
But in the most diverse, wealthiest media conglomerated nation on earth, we should have had more than one in Baghdad. And with the patriotic fervor that swells in the breast of all Americans during a military action overseas, I think a report like Safer wouldn't get past the editing room today.
I think you're wrong. I think it would get past the editing room if he could get it. But in today's climate, he would never get it because the Pentagon wouldn't let him there.
These are the folks of CBS News. We still have a commercial television program, so you'll forgive this brief interruption here, and we'll be back to let this audience ask anything they want of these merry band of troublemakers from CBS News, and we'll be back in just a moment.
If your skin gets so chapped and so cracked, it feels like 100 paper cuts, you should know there's a new way to control it. Announcing Dermasil, a scientific breakthrough from Vaseline Pharmaceutical Research. Look for it this month.
Efferdent users, what would get you to switch to new Denture Cream?
If it got my dentures cleaner.
Denture Cream cleans twice as clean as Efferdent.
If it got them fresher.
Now Denture Cream is even mintier.
Cleaner.
Fresher.
Better. Switch to new Denture Cream.
Burlington Coat Factory has thousands of coats, not hundreds, thousands.
Jackets, raincoats, leathers, the best labels.
I saw the same coat at the mall yesterday.
Oh, look at these low prices.
I know, how do they do it?
Why go anyplace else? I wouldn't.
I got it at the factory, Burlington Coat Factory. They're more than great coats.
It's a story that could only happen on Sesame Street Live. Sleeping Birdie, starring the yellowest, the incomparable Big Bird. Watch as Big Bird is cast into a big sleep. Will the jealous queen reign as the yellowest of all? Enjoy this super saga of music, merriment, and irrepressible antics. There's nothing like Sesame Street Live.
Coming to the George Mason University Patriot Center, December 1 through 5. Visit Ticketmaster or call 202-432-SEAT.
A mother's nightmare.
I'm not gonna leave! I'm gonna kill myself!
Her children are kidnapped by her husband and taken halfway around the world. A civilian rescue team goes undercover in the Middle East, only to have their mission fail.
They pulled AK-47 machine guns on us twice.
But it's not over yet, because this mom vows not to go home without her children.
If my kids have to die here, I'll die here too.
On the next Maury.
Just let me give you the rundown here. 60 minutes. This is for the next trivia quiz. You'll be ready for this. Don Hewitt, you've been there 25 years. Incidentally, where is Andy Rooney just when we need him? Andy, maybe it was something I said. Andy's been with the show for 15 years. I hadn't been with CBS for 43. Mike Wallace, you've been with 60 Minutes for 25 years. I remember your first appearance on the Donahue show. Seems like a quarter of a century ago, when we were talking about would 60 Minutes work, would they watch Talking Heads, and they're going to put you in so many time periods that the audience will never be able to find you. Well, look what's happened. Morley, 23 years for the Morley Man. Ed Bradley, 12. Steve Croft, not out of the womb yet, at 5 years. And Leslie, too busy chasing presidents and doing Face the Nation and other things, has been with the Hewitt team for 3 years. I remember Leslie, perhaps we've talked about this, but it's a moment that sticks in my head. 1980, Republican Convention, Detroit. Here is Leslie Stahl standing in this cavernous arena, live on television, looking at the camera like she's been stunned. And the booth is saying, what, Leslie, what? And Leslie looks into the camera.
The booth is Don, by the way. Don ran the floor correspondence at all the conventions.
She's looking at the camera and she's saying, it's Bush. It's Bush. Do you remember was Reagan going to choose Ford for his vice president? Was a former president going to be vice president now? And would this work? And would they get along? And who will? He can't choose Bush. Voodoo economics. He can't. It's Bush.
Well, the reason I was so probably looking both astonished and apprehensive is because Walter Cronkite, our anchor man, had been pushing the Ford line. I think we broke the story that it was probably going to be Ford, and we'd been on the air for 2 or 3 hours pushing Bush. Pushing Ford. And some wonderful person from the Bush side came and whispered in my ear, it's Bush. I said, are you absolutely sure? He said, go with it, I'm absolutely sure. I said, I'm going to trust you, and had to tell Walter he was wrong. Now that's what that look was all about.
Well, no wonder you looked a little... Sir, briefly.
On the topic of the executive office, Leslie Stahl, when you interviewed Ross Perot, you were pretty rough on him when he was trying to explain the possible death threats against him. He said, follow me, and you said, no, you follow me. And now, with the current issue that he's involved in, there is reports that there are death threats against him.
And?
So do you believe him now that there were originally and all along?
You do get to answer the question. Okay, may I have your indulgence for just one moment? I want him to see the interview. Here's Leslie and Ross. Last year.
Why did Ross Perot really quit the presidential race last July?
Mr. Perot, be more specific. You said that you heard that there was a plan to embarrass your daughter. Tell us specifically, was it the Bush Quail people?
This was the Republican key people and their opposition research teams.
The Bush Quail key people?
Yeah, the Republican. Yeah, they are the Republicans. I received another call from a person who I respect, who said that there was a plan to have a computer-created false photo of my daughter Carolyn that they were going to give the press shortly before her wedding to embarrass her.
Okay, let's just review. You're out of the race. You've pulled out, and someone comes to you and says the Bush Quail campaign wants to wiretap your office in the financial areas. Who told you that?
Well, this again came to me through another source. He told me that the person they had approached was this same person, Mr. Barnes.
Leslie. Was that an unfair interview in your opinion?
My recollection is that we didn't talk about death threats. My recollection is that we talked about his charge that Bush and his people were trying to ruin his daughter's wedding, and that they had wiretapped the financial side of his computer programs. I don't remember the death threat side of it.
Hang on just one second. Yes, I'll get back to you, I promise. Sir.
This was a totally different question, but on editing, who does control the editing process, and how is bias kept in or kept out of that?
Don Hewitt. Don Hewitt controls the editing process. Yeah, seriously, Don is the final arbiter. Anything that we bring to the table has to eventually get by Don. But you had said earlier that you'd never seen a bad 60 Minutes. And the reason is that Don stops it from getting on the air, no matter what has been put into it. Just one example. I went to Burma to do a story that I never should have done because there wasn't a story there. But we went there, we shot it, we edited it, we wrote it, we came back, and when the lights came up in the screening, Don paused for a long time. He said nothing. And then he said, you know, I've never seen a story I didn't think I could make better. Until this one. And it never got on the air. As it shouldn't have gotten on the air.
The point he raised is a very good one. The fact is, it goes through a long and careful process, even before Don gets to see it. And the process includes a senior producer, Esther Cardiganer, who is a kind of a traffic cop for bias, the producer, the cameraman, myself, and if anybody was going to try and play funny games with a story and get a particular bias in, I guarantee you it would fall out even before it got to Don.
Okay, with lots of other clips we want to show, but you were too rough on Lloyd's of London. You made it look like... Oh, sorry, Ed. Ed, you know, Ed, Morley, I mean, who can tell? They're all, you know. You were too rough on Lloyd's of London. The spin was negative. The Washington Times blew the whistle on you. I'm sure they got a call from Lloyd's of London. You made it sound like the company was over, and it isn't. Troubled times, to be sure, but you buried them, and you shouldn't have.
Well, they lost $300 or $400 million 2 or 3 years in a row. They're going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars for years to come. I was rough. I didn't invest money in the company. If I had invested money in the company, then I really would have been rough.
But you certainly stand by your story, as reported. And we'll be back in just a moment.
Hi, you're about to get some valuable information from Mr. Bob Newhart for C&P Telephone. Watch this. I'll be back.
Honey, I just promised Paul Revere I'd light 1, maybe 2 lanterns, and I'm history. Hold on, that's call waiting. Paul? Yeah, I'm glad you called. Listen, was it 2 if by land and 1 if by sea? Paul, we never discussed 3 lanterns.
Call waiting lets important calls get through. What's more, when you call to order, there's no service connection charge.
Why do they always put belfries on the top floor? That could have been Paul. Just use return call. Oh, hi, honey. It was you. Yeah, I thought it might have been... The British are coming! Paul.
Return call takes away the frustration of just missing a call. Get the most out of your phone. Call now for return call and call waiting. Call 1-800-537-0200 to order, and the service connection is free.
In a land of long ago dwells a legendary voice. Robert Goulet is King Arthur in
Camelot.
pageantry, romance, wizardry, comedy, chivalry.
Extended by popular demand, it's Robert Goulet in Camelot, November 23rd through December 5th at the Warner Theater. Tickets at the box office and all Ticketmasters. To charge by phone, call 202-432-SEAT.
Cynthia Curley's No Workout.
Hi, I'm fitness expert Cynthia Kurlak with a 2-part exercise. Part 1 has a lot of steps, so watch closely. And now, part 2. See, drinking milk and doing simple things like going up and down the stairs builds bones and helps keep your body fit. Got it? Or should I go over those steps again?
Milk, whole, low fat, or non fat. It does a body good.
Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to say my husband and I both enjoyed your show many Sunday nights. But they didn't answer your question. Where is Andy? We miss him.
Yeah.
And that was
what is this? You know. Does this bother you or not? People who don't show up for an appointment on I mean,
He spends very little time with us. He's got an office across the street from all of us, comes over once a week to show his 2 or 3 minutes to Don Hewitt. Don Hewitt says yay or nay, and Andy goes back across the street and pouts. It's true.
I'd like to ask Mike Wallace, if you only had one more interview that you could do, and you could have anyone be interviewed, who would that be?
Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. She is not a close friend, but she is a friend, and I have never had the guts to ask her. It's quite apparent that she's far and away the most interesting woman in the world today. And Jacqueline Onassis is...
Yet to be interviewed, you mean?
The most mysterious.
The most mysterious. And she simply, obviously, wants to keep... She does not want to spend her privacy in that fashion.
Your name is Myron something.
Correct. Myron Wallace.
Uh-huh. A nice Jewish boy from where?
Brookline, Massachusetts.
And you haven't altogether... there have been times in your career when you've been more welcome at the synagogue than others. Isn't this so? Truly, you have...
from time to time, I have from time to time, and very proud of it, too, done stories which have infuriated the so-called Jewish community in America. They've just gotten mad at me and have eventually wound up calling me a self-hating Jew. Both my mother and father are dead, and I thought to myself, if Frank and Zina ever knew what they were saying about Myron, they would roll over. Having said that, we have done more good stories, it seems to me, about trying for better understanding of the business between the Israelis and the Palestinians, which has indeed finally come to fruition in just the last year.
And you'll never be restrained from reporting sins as you see them on either side.
You bet your life.
Just one more now.
Except my own.
Except your own. Now the Catholics are on your case. Here you are with Archbishop Sanchez of Santa Fe, New Mexico. Takes the heat, takes the bullet for allegations that he had mutually consensual sex with young women while he was a man of the cloth.
Correct.
And here you are walking, embarrassing him. You know, now the Catholics are on your case. And the rap is that it looked like you were accusing him of pedophilia. This wasn't pedophilia. Child abuse is a significantly different thing than mutually consensual sex between two adults, no matter how separate their ages may be. To that criticism, you would respond to Catholics everywhere.
Well, first of all, it wasn't the Archbishop who was marching, and I never got to see the Archbishop.
Well, you were walking alongside him. I saw the...
No, that wasn't the Archbishop. That was a priest in that diocese, in that archdiocese. Yeah. And he had not been involved in consensual whatever with young women. He had been involved in consensual whatever with boys. And I wanted to ask him about that. It was quite apparent that it was an accurate story, understandable story. The Archbishop, as a matter of fact, has since resigned. He's no longer the Archbishop of the Archdiocese of New Mexico. Right. And I can't imagine, and I candidly have not heard a great deal from any Catholics about this.
Mm-hmm. So why do I have to make trouble? And we'll be back in just a moment.
Deep down inside, we knew it could happen, but I think we're ready for it.
I think it's just we're a little scared. But I believe because of the length of time we've been together and because we know each other so well that we feel that we can face it and that we're prepared.
Can we look?
I'm shaking.
I knew it. Congratulations. You happy?
Mm-hmm.
Burlington Coat Factory has thousands of coats, not hundreds, thousands.
Jackets, raincoats, leathers, the best labels.
I saw the same coat at the mall yesterday.
Oh, look at these low prices.
I know, how do they do it?
Why go anyplace else? I wouldn't.
I got it at the factory, Burlington Coat Factory. They're more than great coats.
For Daniel Hillard, there was only one way to see his kids.
Could you make me a woman?
As Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh, good!
It was perfect. Until his ex
Sue?
found someone new.
Oh, did I miss anything?
Now, it's no more Mrs. Nice Guy.
Oh, sir, it was a run by fruiting.
Robin Williams.
What are you looking at?
Mrs. Doubtfire. Rated PG-13. Special sneak preview Saturday night. Check newspapers.
We've got your coat at Coat World. Your dress coat, your raincoat, your work coat, your play coat. Over 6,000 coats and jackets for the whole family, and all at famous Coat World savings every day.
Coat World, we've got your coat.
Potomac Mills Mall, Virginia. Take I-95 to exit 156.
When we were younger, it seemed so easy to get pregnant. Now it's taking forever.
I've always wanted kids. Why do we wait so long?
The tests are so draining. I feel like I'm on an emotional roller coaster.
What if it's my fault?
What if it's my fault? I see babies, children, and just want to cry.
It's a crisis of the very deepest kind. But with knowledge comes comfort. News 4's Doreen Gensler reports tonight at 11.
To be part of the audience, please send a postcard to Donahue Tickets, care of NBC, 30 Rockefeller Plaza, New York, New York, 10112. Remember, postcards only, please.
Yeah, let me know. Yes.
Okay. I've watched your show for many years, and one thing that I've noticed, a technique that you have, where you show up at a company or at a business and you throw the camera in a person's face and you ask them these questions, and it makes the person look guilty, whether or not they really are. Don't you think it's kind
Excuse
of
me, may I ask whether you stole this dress?
I don't. What are you talking about? And people turn red, they get all nervous. Don't you think it's kind of a cheap shot when you do that attack journalism?
Not at all. Not at all.
Not anymore at all.
Correct, not anymore at all. The so-called ambush interview is what you're talking about. By and large, when we do what is called an ambush interview, we have written a letter, we have telephoned, we have telegraphed, and tried to get that individual to appear on camera. And if we get no response, and we finally want the audience to be able to see who that individual is and where he or she works, then we go there with the cameras. And frequently, we got some interesting material. After a while, this was early on, so you don't look that old, but you did watch it near the beginning when we did a lot of those so-called ambush interviews. Then we wondered if we were about to become a caricature of ourselves.
We being you.
Well, hell, it was only you and me at the time.
But why did you back off? What's wrong with this? You let them...
Hewitt?
You know, come on.
What's wrong with what?
Go get him. What's the matter? What makes you think? Yeah, why don't you don't do that anymore? It's like you buckled because you got a little heat.
Watch this year. Yeah. We got a couple in the can.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you're back jumping out of garbage cans again.
We got a couple in the can.
I just chased someone down he was the head of Hewlett-Packard, who didn't want to be interviewed, and we found him in a public situation. We didn't burst into his office.
Sure.
And it was quite legitimate because he ran a big
It depends
company.
why you're doing it, Phil. Are you doing it for illumination, or are you doing it for self-conscious drama? If it's self-conscious drama, forget it.
That will be apparent, and I'm sure the grand...
We also recently went to a guy who was an alleged con man running a scheme on Wall Street with a hidden camera in a truck outside of his door. Knocked on his door, he came to the door, talked to us, and I never thought I'd get him to go on camera. We talked to him for about a half an hour, and he agreed to go on camera.
Well, there you
Why?
See?
I don't know.
Once again, confirming 60 Minutes commitment to very, very important stories. Let's just take a quick look. We're doing violence to these reports, which are all, what, 19 minutes, 18? I'm not sure what.
13.
13, and here we are showing about a minute, but here's Ed Bradley in Somalia. This is grim.
Anita Ennis, who works for the Irish relief organization Concern, introduced us to Hawa, who was so weak from hunger, she had to be carried into the Concern Center from a nearby village. Do you think you can build her back up?
Oh, yeah. It'll take time. It'll take a considerable amount of time.
And the rest of her family?
She's nobody.
Gone.
She's gone. She's an orphan. But it's amazing, like, for her weight. She's 16 kilos, like, 15 years of age. But
16 kilos, that's about 40 pounds.
Yeah.
Well, that's something. That's certainly showing us what we don't want to see. And you have our admiration. Yes?
Since you've been doing interviews so long, have you developed the ability to see if people are lying to you? And what do you do in those situations? Just like what would you do if something was very emotional when you were undercover trying to buy a child? What do you do in those situations?
First of all, it's not easy to tell if someone's lying. Very often we go knowing the answer ahead of time because our producers are so terrific that usually they give us the information. Here's the true story. Let's see what they're going to say, with documents that back it up. So in that case, we'll know. But if you're just doing an emotional human interest story, it's very difficult to tell if someone's being straightforward with you. You have to take them at their word. If
I
it's
think
that
you can
kind of
assume they're
story.
lying, however.
All the time.
Yeah,
Every time.
absolutely. I mean, or at least fudging.
Clifford Irving, early on, Clifford Irving absolutely persuaded all of us, and we put it
No,
on the
not
air.
me, you.
Clifford Irving claiming to have
seen Howard Hughes.
Howard Hughes.
Not only seen, written the story of Howard Hughes. I believe
He
it.
bought it, lock, stock, and barrel.
To your recollection, what's been your most challenging story?
Let me give you a chance to think about that, because we do want to make a break here. We'll be back as the 60 Minutes cast answers that question in a moment.
Every day, homes are sold at auction because of mortgage foreclosure, and almost everyone could have been saved by American Mortgage Assistance. American Mortgage Assistance finds solutions to your mortgage problems. Call now, 931-9393. If you're 90 days or more behind on your payments, American Mortgage Assistance can help. Don't lose your home. Call now, 931-9393. American Mortgage Assistance.
This year, we received a beautiful portrait from our son Roger and his family.
This year, Roger did his shopping at Expressly Portraits.
He must have really planned ahead.
Nope, at Expressly Portraits, it only takes about an hour.
Must have cost him a fortune.
Expressly Portraits' holiday special is only $9.95.
He's so thoughtful. I can't wait to tell his sister.
Oops, Roger sent her one, too. For appointments at a mall near you, call 1-800-709-6000.
On Saturday? Okay. Have a great day. Bye, honey.
Louise, can we talk for a moment? I am with the president on health care for everyone.
But these details, like the national health care budget, the government sets a ceiling on spending and says, that's it.
But what if there's not enough money? I mean, what happens then?
There's got to be a better way, Libby.
There is a better way to reform. Call this toll-free number for the facts.
On the next Sally.
Should mothers be forced to pay child support?
Every weekend, Marie kisses her 4-year-old goodbye and goes to jail. All because she can't afford to pay child support.
I says, I'll see you soon, Frankie. God will be with you.
What do you think of a husband who'd send his wife to jail?
She is depriving the children.
Because she isn't paying child support.
She has not sent 1 penny in 7 years. Not 1 penny.
Are these women deadbeat moms? You decide. On the next Sally.
For a transcript of Donahue, send $3 to Journal Graphics, 1535 Grant Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203. Or call 303-831-9000. To order a video cassette for only $24.95, just call 1-800-FOR-VIDEO.
It's just when you're sitting there looking at something grim, suddenly 60 Minutes will surprise you, no doubt, because Donahue had planned it that way. Here's Morley Safer on art. What is art? I mean, come on, vacuum cleaners? What?
It may have escaped your notice, but recently a vacuum cleaner just like this one and the one down in your basement was sold for $100,000. Also, a sink went for $121,000 and a pair of urinals for $140,000. All of the above and even more unlikely stuff is art. That's what the artists say, the dealers, and of course, the people who lay out good money. It all may make you believe in the wisdom of P.T. Barnum that there's a sucker born every minute.
Yeah. How much that go? I'll take the grass. Your most challenging assignment, do you have one? Is that a fair question? Most, least, worst, best? Mike.
Ayatollah Khomeini, beyond doubt. Hostages had just been taken. Finally, we got about 10 days later, we got the opportunity to go to the holy city of Qom to talk to the Ayatollah.
Is this where you sat on the floor with him?
Sat on the floor with him. We had to tell them the questions ahead of time. We said, we don't do that. Well, no questions, no interview. So we said, okay, and we negotiated questions for a long time. And finally, this was not with him, with his aides. Finally, he walks into his own television studio, which is almost half the size of this one with the lights and the cameras and so forth. doesn't look neither to left nor right, goes over, sits down, I sit it, and I began with the questions. After about 10 or 15 minutes of it, I thought to myself, I'm not going to just ask the questions. So I turned to him and I said,
through an interpreter, we should say.
Of course.
Right? Yeah.
Forgive me, Imam, but Anwar Sadat says, you are a lunatic.
And then you said his words, not mine.
Yeah. Did the interpreter dare?
The interpreter said, I said, what do you mean, not you? He said it. He translated, and for the only time in the entire interview, the Ayatollah smiled and proceeded to take Anwar Sadat apart and to call for his punishment. And the punishment came just a little while later.
It did, while he watched a parade of passersby.
Exactly.
Whoa. Morley, anything particular jump out at you? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think...
I don't know what I would say if people ask me, and we're at 6,000 here. Right. I hate these most, worst, best questions, but you're doing well so far.
I think that any story, and I can think of one particular, the Lionel Jeter story, but any story that involves the commission of a crime and the judicial system, it's very, very challenging.
Jeter, the black male from Texas who was mistaken and...
went to prison for life. And was subsequently freed.
As a result of your piece.
But any story like that, because the nuances of the legal system in a state like Texas, which sometimes are not the fairest in the world, but you can't go in assuming it's unfair. So you're dealing with really quite delicate issues, and those stories are very challenging.
And you could be wrong.
And that's right. And you take your best shot, and you go on the air knowing the research has been superb, your own work has been up to scratch, and everything else, and still, but if you didn't, you dropped the ball somewhere, and you didn't. So those things are very, very challenging.
Ed.
I think a story that I did years ago, the second or third year I was at 60 Minutes, on a kid who, he was 14 years old at the time, who after years of physical abuse from his father, years of watching his sister physically and sexually abused by his father, years of watching his mother physically abused by his father, took a shotgun, waited in the garage, and when his father came home, he killed him with his sister at his side. And I interviewed him in jail. And the most difficult thing for me was watching what he was going through emotionally and trying to listen. Because I would ask him a question, and sometimes he wouldn't answer the question for a full minute. And you just have to sit there and wait for him. And I remembered something that I read years ago in an interview with Mike, that Mike had told the reporter who was interviewing him that the best reporter is a good listener. And it's very difficult at times to sit back and not say anything, because there's a tendency we all have to fill dead air.
Isn't that a fact?
And I remembered those words of listening.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll give you both a chance. Excuse the interruption. This program comes to you in the Eastern time zones, New York City and elsewhere, some other markets on Friday. And this Sunday night at 7 o'clock, a special 2-hour edition reviewing a retrospective marking the 25th anniversary of what is quite literally the most profitable, successful, blockbuster program in the history of television. I speak of 60 Minutes, a special 2-hour edition this Sunday at 7 on CBS. We'll be back in just a moment.
Introducing Corning Lifestyles, the first collection of coordinating tableware and cookware that gives you everything from cups to casseroles in styles that fit your lifestyle. Corning Lifestyles, designed for living.
There's big news in biscuits, presenting Grand's Biscuits, our biggest, lightest biscuits ever, made with real buttermilk for a delicious home-style taste.
Nothing says loving like my Grand's Biscuits. Hello, I'm Michael Fitzgerald, President and Chief Operating Officer of the Riggs National Bank of Maryland.
And I'm Sharon Taylor with the Coors Literacy Pass It On program.
We are pleased to invite you to join us in supporting Project Harvest 1993.
And now, here's Pat Lawson-Muse from WRC-TV.
Thank you, Sharon and Mike. WRC-TV invites you to join us at the Old Post Office Pavilion on Tuesday, November 23rd from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m. for Project Harvest. Please bring your donations to help feed those in our community who are in need.
If you've ever thought about changing the way you look, you should read this booklet. It's called Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Plastic Surgery, and they mean everything. It's got information on all the procedures, how to choose the right surgeon, pictures, prices, financing, and it's free. Just call this number. Call right now, and someday you may be very glad you did. Call Bilage at 703-998-4111.
A year after the birth of my second child, this lady patted me on the stomach and said, "Oh, when is the blessed event?" That was what sent me to Jenny Craig. I found the Jenny Craig cuisine so convenient. It taught me what a healthy portion is. When you're halfway to goal on Jenny Craig, you gradually start cooking your own food, and it's such an easy transition. Now it's like, oh, it's so simple, but now it finally makes sense.
Join now and lose 10 pounds free. And for every new program, we'll donate $10 to Race for the Cure. Call Jenny Craig.
On the occasion of his retirement, not long before his death, Harry Reasoner is convinced that Mike Wallace loves him, and here's the evidence. This is just one photo in this book titled 60 Minutes, 25 Years of Television's Finest Hour, and should we be surprised? The introduction is by Don Hewitt, who should know what he's talking about. Leslie, do you want to take a swing at that question, please, and we'll see how many we can get in here in waning seconds.
All right, the most difficult are the ones you never see. I can't tell you how many people we call who won't give us interviews, and the piece dies because the central character, even when I say, I'm not Mike Wallace, they still won't give me the interview. And this is a running problem, and makes it very difficult to get on the air with this
They're
guy.
afraid of you. But it's an interesting study. The tougher you are, the more difficult, the more you do your job, the less likely it is that people... Steve.
I would say it actually happened in my favorite story, a piece about a Colonel Ralph Hales who accidentally killed as a helicopter pilot 2 Americans during the Gulf War. And while we were doing the story, somebody made available to us a videotape taken from the helicopter. And it was a military format. You know, it wasn't something you could pop in a VHS machine and play. We sent producer Frank Devine literally halfway around the world to find a machine that could dub this off. And we were never quite sure, you know, we were going to show an American killing other American troops. We were never quite sure whether the Pentagon was going to come busting into the door even on Friday afternoon to try and confiscate the tape. So we had to make a decision whether we were going to use it, how we were going to use it. We finally ended up calling the Pentagon, told them we had the tape, and was there any high security information that you could see, instrumentation and things on the bottom of the tape that they didn't want shown. And they came back and said, thanks for calling us. Please delete this line of numbers and whatnot. And
this is a real terrible question to ask Hewitt. Do you put your best piece last and your one you're worried about in the middle? Come on. We're all pals here. These people weren't born yesterday. I mean, let's...
First of all, you know, the audience is larger in the second half hour because people tune in as it gets darker.
They're waiting for Rooney.
He always says that when you say, Don, I thought I had the lead story. Why don't I have the lead story? He says, listen, you're better at third. You got more people watching.
Yeah. So, right, the lead story is definitely a good story.
No, you know why Mike doesn't like the lead story? He's afraid that NBC game is going to run over opposite us.
Yeah. You had briefly wanted to say.
Yes, now that we've seen that blondes can be both brainy and beautiful, why aren't there more women on the show, and where can I apply?
And we'll give you a chance to answer that question in just a moment.
What a great song.
What a great station. It's the new Easy 99.5. Playing a soft, relaxing blend of all your favorite singers and songs. The new Easy 99.5. All the songs you love, all the time, all on one station. The great new sound of the new Easy 99.5. Come on, give it a try.
Deadbolt. I just smashed the door in.
I could pick most locks with a credit card.
I know when you're home and when you're not.
This is the ADT SafeWatch Plus home security system.
They were asleep. They didn't even know we was in the house.
It links your home to an ADT customer monitoring center where trained security professionals help monitor your home 24 hours a day.
I had a family. I want to protect them from guys like me.
When trouble strikes, ADT can take action.
Summit Police, there's a break-in
ADT helps protect your family and home against break-ins and helps with medical emergencies and fires. Call 1-800-ADT-4636 for affordable security for your home. Only $195 installed and $21.95 for monthly monitoring.
The house with an alarm system you skip. The others you go for.
Call 1-800-ADT-4636. You don't want to confront trouble face to face.
You're about to see another side of Effordent, two-layered Effordent, with Arm & Hammer baking soda to help clean and freshen. Two-layered Effordent, clean, fresh dentures come out of the blue.
How long does Replens relieve the discomfort of vaginal dryness? All day, all night, through the next day and night. Discover the difference of Replens vaginal moisture that lasts for days.
What's next on Springer?
He's a 6-foot purple giant with big teeth, and kids around the country are crazy about him. Barney mania has swept this land, but I met some folks who are sick of Barney.
Stupefyingly stupid things happen on the Barney Show.
We've got a Barney dysfunctional family. Dinosaurs are made to eat small children, not teach the concept of social equality.
Turning into the purple messiah.
What's the big deal about Barney? Next, Jerry Springer.
The dark side of life you've never encountered and may never forget. Go inside a crack house. Next, Donahue.
One more pop for the book. 60 Minutes, 25 years of television's finest hour. I'm pleased to call this to your attention. I hope there's a piece of this for you, Don. And guess who made the cover of TV Guide? I'll tell you what. Here is the pro who's hit the long ball for a long, long time. Mike Myron, you are 70-something.
75.
75. He's 76.
Yeah, what? Yes, quickly, before we go. Yes. Harry Reasoner was the first guy, and Harry Reasoner was the heart of America.
Services provided and promotional fees paid by the following.
Stetson Cologne, the great masculine scent that's easy to wear and hard for a woman to resist. Stetson fits.
Check this out. I'm eating a hero, even with my dentures, thanks to Super Polygrip.
Hold your dentures super tight with Super Polygrip.
Guest accommodations provided by the Drake Swiss Hotel on Park Avenue, New York's premier address for business or leisure, with guest rooms, suites, and conference rooms for up to 200 people. Call 1-800-DRAKE-NEW-YORK and ask about our special packages priced from $150.